So this is part two of the Sitdown Lesson of the Prophecy Updates video recording and cut short. So this is part two. As I read this whole news article, now we have a recent class dispute between Thailand and Cambodia. As it says, two soldiers were wounded as Thai and Cambodian military clashes had dispute border. It's the book of Luke 21. It's the book of Luke 21, verse 25. It says, "There shall be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars upon the earth. The disgrace of nations will perplexity." And see verse 1. Right, so this is a sign right here of the disgrace of nations with perplexity, verse 1 of this recent news article, which they've been having classes for decades ago, and then had the recent one in the month of May. And then, 2 months later, another class occurred once again. So tensions are definitely heating up between the border dispute between Thailand and Cambodia. As it says again, two soldiers wounded as Thai and Cambodian military classes had border dispute. I'll read that again. It's the book of Luke 21 and verse 25. It says, "And there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars upon the earth, the disgrace of nations will perplex the sisters one." Right, that's what's in it. This is AI overview. This is reports indicating a recent encounter between an Iranian helicopter and a U.S. Navy destroyer and a U.S. Fitzgerald in the Gulf of Oman. Iranian state media claims that the helicopter warned Fitzgerald to change course, alleging it was approaching Iran waters. However, a U.S. official stated that the interaction was safe and professional and did not impact the destroyer missions, according to Al Rubilia English. It says here's more details of the breakdown. It says the Iranian state media reports that a helicopter from the Iranian Navy confronted the USS Fitzgerald in the Gulf of Oman. Iranian state TV says the destroyer was attempting to approach its water under Iran's monitoring, and that the helicopter issued a warning for the ship to change course. It says the context this incident occurred in a period of increasing tensions in the region, including U.S. strikes on Iranian-backed groups. Historical procedure. Iran has a history of confronting U.S. naval vessels in the Gulf of Oman and destroying Hamas, if I pronounced that right. Yeah, once again, Luke 21, verse 25. "And there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars upon the earth, the disgrace of nations will perplexity more." Right, so that's what we're seeing, increasing clashes between the nations, tensions between the nations. That's what protests, seditions, uprisings, upwards with the world, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. We're seeing that increasing on a daily basis, even though it's been on and off back and forth, but we're definitely seeing signs of it. And we're definitely seeing the signs from the sun and the moon and the stars and Heavenly Father showing us increasing. And of course upon the earth that the Heavenly Father showing us as well too, that He spoke about from the days of before from the beginning. It says, "And upon the earth the stress of nations will replace the cities one." This is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, and verse 6. It says, "Ye shall hear wars and rumors of wars." Right, that's what we're hearing, wars and rumors of wars. We're seeing this, the latest clashes between Thailand and Cambodia. Yeah, those are signs of wars and rumors of wars, and the tensions between Iran and the tensions between Iran and the United States, despite the fact they had a ceasefire like a month and a half ago, and the tensions are still there between Iran and Israel defense forces as well too. I believe it's a news article from one of the leaders of Iran saying he's yeah, yeah. This is from yeah. This is from Yahoo News. So these are indicators of wars and rumors of wars, like it says in the book of Matthew, the 24th chapter. In fact, yeah, it says Iran ready for war with Israel and will not halt nuclear program. It says in an interview with Al Jazeera, Iranian president insists Iran uranium enrichment program will continue. Iran president, uh, Iran's president has said his country is prepared for any war Israel might wage against it, adding he was not optimistic about the ceasefire between the countries, while confronting Tehran is committed to continuing its nuclear program for peaceful purposes. It says the president of Iran has commented in the exclusive interview with Al Jazeera aired on Wednesday. It says one of his first since the end of the 12-day conflict with Israel last month, which the United States had intervened Israel's behalf and launched strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. The comments comes as Western nations says they are seeking a solution to Iran's ongoing nuclear ambitions in the wake of the conflict. Committee reports that strikes on its nuclear facilities was less damaging than the claim by Washington. That once again is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. Well, that's a sign of wars and rumors of wars, despite the fact they had a ceasefire deal between the Israel. Despite the fact they had a deal between the Israel Defense Force and Iran, because the tensions are still going to be there. So Iran says they potentially might strike Israel Defense Force said they potentially might strike Iran once again if they pose a threat of more developing of uranium of nuclear capability. But according to a report from Iran saying they still going to continue to redevelop their nuclear uranium, for peace purposes. As I read the news article from Al Jazeera, it says ye should hear of wars and rumors of wars, right? So these are wars and rumors of wars, despite the fact they had this ceasefire that took place like a month and a half ago, almost close to 2 months now. So the tensions are still going to be there between Iran and Israel Defense Force. So you had the president of Iran was speaking to one of the representatives from Al Jazeera as they had an exclusive interview. It was on Wednesday, as I read the news article. He was saying that the president of Iran was saying that he's prepared for any potential war between the United States Army or the Israel Defense Force. Potentially might use another airstrike against them if they feel that they can create more nuclear capability if it's a threat. So potentially the United States might drop bombs on them once again, or the Israel Defense Force as well too. So as you said, as you see, the president of Iran say he's prepared for any scenario or any war that it might happen once again, like it did last month and a half, which ended a 12-day conflict between Iran and Israel Defense Force, even though they came to a ceasefire. But ever since then, the ceasefire been holding on, but the tensions are still going to be there between the Israel Defense Force and Iran, because they are arch enemies. Matthew 24, verse 7, for nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. Right, so that's what we're seeing. Nation shall rise against nation Thailand versus Cambodia border dispute, tensions between the Russia-Ukraine situation, and I believe they're going to have some nuclear talks. Last time I checked, but till then, the tensions are only going to heat up between Russia and Ukraine, Thailand versus Cambodia, the Israel Defense Force going against the Israelis over there in the Mediterranean Sea, over there in the Red Sea. So these are signs of increasing of modern day wars and rumors of wars, and nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom. It says, "For nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places." Right, so increasing famines and pestilence, plagues and earthquakes in diverse places. Matthew 24, verse 6. "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars." Why we see that increasing on a daily basis. "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must first come to pass, but it's not yet." Why? So it's going to come to pass, but not going to shed. Matthew 24, verse 8. "All these are the beginning of sorrows." Right, so all these biblical signs that Heavenly Father Yahweh spoke about, these just the beginning of sorrows, which is going to continue to increase. This is the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 9 and verse 3. Yeah, 2nd Ezra, chapter 9 and verse 3. It says, "Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes," right, just like that earthquake that hit over there in Indonesia. I believe that was a 6.3 earthquake. Yep, it says, "There shall be seen earthquakes and uproars people world." Right, so that's what we're seeing, uproars people world, border dispute between Thailand and Cambodia, tensions between Russia and Ukraine, tensions are heating up over there in the Gaza Strip as of lately. So these are signs of uproars of people world, increasing distress of nations with perplexities rage wrong. And we're seeing nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and we're seeing increasing earthquakes in diverse places. It's the book of 2nd Ezra 15. 2nd Ezra 15, verse 15. It says, "For the sword of destruction draweth nigh. One people should stand up and fight against another with swords in hands." Right, so that's what we're seeing. One people should stand up and fight against another with swords in hands. The border dispute between Thailand and Cambodia. One people should stand up and fight against another with swords in hands. We know the modern swords weapon is what we're seeing. 2nd Ezra 15, verse 16. "For there should be sedition among men." Right, what's happening over there in the Gaza Strip. A lot of latest rounds of heavy airstrikes and bombings from the Israel Defense Force over there in Gaza Strip once again, despite the fact they might have a ceasefire, which was under control, I believe, ever since last year of November. But till then, this has been stirring up, despite the fact that we have a ceasefire agreement. It says, "For there should be sedition among men, if anyone in another nation I regard their kings nor their princes, and of course actions in their power." Right, because we're going to enter in that 2nd Ezra 16 chapter, the great insurrection, uprising, and we definitely seen increasing signs of that. It's the book of St. Mark. We have St. Mark chapter 3 and verse 23. "And he called them unto him and said in a parable, how can Satan cast out Satan?" St. Mark 3 verse 24. "And if a kingdom be divided against itself, the kingdom cannot stand." Right, so as we're seeing, if a kingdom be divided against itself, the kingdom cannot stand. St. Mark 3 verse 25. "And if a house be divided against itself, the house cannot stand." Right, so we see a model kingdoms within the kingdom being divided, and then outside another kingdom being divided against another kingdom. We see that modern day house is being divided. So if a house be divided against itself, the house cannot stand. We see that as well too. It's the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 3. From there, I'm going to close it out. Ecclesiasticus, chapter 3, verse 1. Ecclesiasticus, chapter 3, verse 1. It says, St. Mark, I'm trying to get to that, Ecclesiasticus. That's the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 3, verse 1. It says, "To everything there is a season and a time for every person in heaven." Right, so we're living in modern days on a time and season every person in heaven, which is modern day biblical signs or signs of times. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 8. It says, "In a time to love, and a time of HATE, and a time of war, and a time of peace." Right, so we live in a time of HATE, and we live in a time of war as well too. As I mentioned again, those border disputes heating up between Thailand and Cambodia. We see in the Russia-Ukraine situation heating up, despite the fact they might have peace talks underway very soon, I believe. Once they recently met over there in Turkey, representations from Vladimir Zelensky and representations of Russia as well too. I believe they had peace talks underway, so we're going to see how that plays out. But till then, we definitely going to continue to see the Russia-Ukraine situation heating up. And there was recent disputes between Thailand and Cambodia, and all these escalations and tensions are heating up between these nations. And that's what we're seeing, which is modern day wars, rumors of wars, modern day nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. So we definitely live in a time of war, and we live in a time of HATV as well too. So with that, hopefully this sit-down lesson was edifying of this recent news article. Hopefully this sit-down lesson was edifying. I meant to say, the prophecy updates as of July the 23rd, 2025, Thursday. So with that, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Shem, and Kakadash, and the Heavenly Father. True name is Yahweh, and the Son Ba'Shem, in the name of Hamashiach Kabashai. Also, the true names in ancient Pelican Hebrew, the Gospel of Ba'Shem tongue. And I say, rock thumbs to the elders and apostles with Akbar. Until next time, I would say Shalom.